more. With that said, I want to introduce my guest today. It is Dr. Arland Hill. Doctor, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it, man.
Glad to be here.
I'm excited, and I was reading through your bio. We became friends, and you have so many initials after your name. I see DC, MPH, DACBN. Okay, help us out. What does that mean?
Yeah, and I think there was actually a design purpose in acquiring some of those credentials, in that, you know, with the DC being a doctorate of chiropractic there, that's really more of a clinical degree. I mean, working with patients day in, day out. But, you know, that's not really all of what healthcare is about. I mean, healthcare has a larger picture too that we have to look at, and that's really more of the public health model behind it. So I really wanted to have not just, you know, the clinical influences that are affecting my patient's health, but I also wanted to look at it from an environmental aspect and see what influences. And really, public health is a good model to do that by. You know, and that kind of led me coming out of school, understanding that the clinical model, there's really got to be a little bit more to it than what we typically think about as traditional healthcare. And it kind of led me down this road into nutrition. And really that opens a lot of doors, because there's a lot of limitations from a nutritional aspect when we start looking at healthcare today, and really being able to fill that need for individuals. It allows me to do a lot of work with a lot of people.
Now, I look at these other MPH. What does that stand for?
That's Master of Public Health.
And DACBN?
That's Diplomate American Clinical Board of Nutrition.
I have no idea what that means, but anybody that has credentials after a name like this is an expert. So the point being, today I want you to listen, and listen carefully, because today we're going to see information given from an expert in his field, and this is stuff we need to be listening to. We've been doing things our way for so long, and to steal a line from a famous TV personality, how is that working for you? So today I'm going to have Dr. Hill explain a little bit about what he means by this non-traditional medicine, if you will, functional medicine we sometimes like to call it. And Doctor, let me ask you this. We've got to know each other a little bit over the last few months, and became friends. And I'm privileged to call you a friend, and I know you are a believer. And before we begin too much, I want people to hear your story, just briefly, how you came to know the Lord.
You know, I grew up in a Christian home, so I had great mentors with my parents. I mean, they definitely put me on the right track. But I think, like most people, you have to go through life and evolve a little bit, and you kind of have to come to it on your own. You know, you can have the right stage set for you, but if you don't ultimately come to it on your own and develop that personal relationship with Christ, then it just doesn't have the same significance and meaning. And I think for me, looking at what talents that I knew that I had been given, and figuring out how I was going to use those talents, because, you know, being a Christian means serving people also. Right? So, and I look around and I see that I have the attribute or the ability to be able to talk about healthcare and to really share that, and to be able to passionately share that. But I see so many people around that are unhealthy and need that care. So I feel like, you know, the way that I am supposed to be out helping the world, or, you know, helping others kind of see Christ, is to spread the message of good health to them. Because it allows them to really begin to be able to focus more on the good things of life and not worrying about their health. They can further, you know, if you're always focused on what ailment am I trying to deal with or overcome, then it really limits the amount of attention you can put towards the Word.
Yeah. And you view this as your ministry, correct?
I really do. I really do. I mean, you know, I don't, the Lord has never called me to stand behind a pulpit or anything like that. It's never been my calling. I feel like what I'm meant to do is to stand in front of people and talk about how healthcare is important to them, and what it really means to regain that wellness for them.
Well, you know, we hear the term, when I think of a chiropractor, what I'm picturing is this big plastic spine model sitting in an office with a chart behind it, and I'm picturing somebody grabbing my neck, which, by the way, freaks me out, and then they snap my neck both directions. And that just messes with me. I got to be honest with you.
Sure, so, absolutely.
When I go see you sometime, please figure out a different way to do it for this brother. But here's the point. You do more than that.
I do. And I think it's really when you look at my profession has a lot of specialties within it. A lot of my brethren, we continue to do musculoskeletal care. We do manipulation. We can certainly do it other ways apart from manual manipulation using the hands. But that's only one aspect of care. It's only, if you look at all the different components that really make us up as a human entity, it's our physical structure is only part of that. We've got this whole biochemical side of it too. And when we talk about that, that's really where the nutrition begins to fit in. And when you were mentioning earlier the diplomate status, that was for me where I felt like I had a drawing towards. That was what my passion was. And we get, unlike traditional allopathic medical training, there's not really much emphasis put on nutrition. Well, that is actually a part of the core curriculum for chiropractors. So I just wanted to be able to take it and go to another level with it. And what I've done over time is be able to specialize in that now. So, we really look at it from more of a true scientific basis where we're trying to apply nutrition on where you truly need. We define what your needs are as opposed to, well, here's a good diet or here, try a few supplements. It's really not that model.
So we use the term, I guess we'd say alternative medicine sometimes, and that kind of freaks people out when they're thinking that's some strange, mystical, far out, non-factual, non-science-based approach. Explain that, and also use the term a second ago that I hear a lot is allopathic medicine. What does that mean? And then how does the term alternative health care, what actually is that?
Right. So it's probably easiest to start with allopathic medicine. And really what that is, we can liken that to just what we think about as our traditional healthcare system. The traditional medical model, that is allopathic medicine. When you talk about alternative medicine as a part of that, the naming really begins to insinuate that you've got one entity over here with traditional allopathic medicine and you've got something completely alternative on the other side, and you've almost got to choose between the two. And really, we're kind of starting to get away from the naming alternative, and we're really going more towards complementary or integrative medicine. And I think that's a far better terminology because it doesn't make you feel like you got to choose sides. Right? It's the two working together because there's certainly some benefits by traditional allopathic medicine, but yet there are definitely some things that other healthcare entities have the ability to bring in to complement a person's health. And that's where we look at with the complementary and integrative aspects. You look at the nutritional aspects. You can look at a dietary component to it, the exercise component, just general lifestyle things that are not really talked about in the allopathic medicine model. But yet we all completely understand that they're so core to our overall well-being.
I think it seems like today that people have become so dependent upon a medicine, and not to say a pharmaceutical drug is a bad thing. There's purposes, and Dr. Hill will explain that, but he uses the words complementary and integrative, meaning it's putting the whole package together, every piece together to actually form a whole. And his desire, his calling, and his mission, if you will, is to give people that experience in life state of wellness, to be well, to be free from these sicknesses, the illnesses, and educating people to become a better them, to make their quality of life higher and the quality of life hopefully longer. Am I on the right path, understanding
you're
what
absolutely
you're saying?
on the right track with that.
Now, I'm a big lifter type guy.
Sure.
I've lifted a few weights in my day. How does that fit in with this integrative medicine you're doing?
The thing when you ask me that always comes to mind, and just to kind of, again, show you where allopathic medicine and complementary and integrative medicine have the ability to mesh. When I lecture to other professionals sometimes, and we're talking about whether it's blood sugar complications, insulin resistance, diabetes, those types of things, I always jokingly start out with them and say, look, there are two things that none of us in this room are going to disagree about, which is pretty uncommon in a room full of healthcare providers.
Imagine, yes.
But it's that when it comes to supporting a diabetic patient, diet and exercise are core. You can't get away from those two things. Now, we may disagree on how to implement those things, but we know diet and exercise are essential. So to your question on, where does exercise resistance training fit in? Well, we're dynamic individuals. We're meant to move. So when you look at, with something like weight training, obviously we use the weight to impose a stress on our body, but it's a temporary stress. It's by no means a chronic stress. So when we impose that temporary stress, it actually causes our body to adapt to it. And by that adaptation process, we get positive hormonal responses from it. And really, when you look at a lot of the indicators for overall health and well-being, they improve by applying resistance training or other forms of exercise.
I love that because I've experienced this when I've exercised, and it's important that everyone understands that the physical training aspect is designed to strengthen the muscles to move the bones more efficiently. That's what muscles do. Their muscles are tied by a tendon to the bone and they pull the bones. Muscles pull. But doctors, as I asked this question, I think we're talking about activity. I've experienced this idea that when I do activity, I feel better. Not just physically, but something happens to me emotionally and mentally. What is that and why is that?
I got to tell you, the thing that immediately comes to mind for me when you say that is that when you look at, if you think about the least ideal mental state, maybe depression, when we're just not feeling ourselves. But if you look at the medical literature and what is one of the best interventions to help depression, it's exercise.
Wow.
It's probably one of the more researched actual interventions, and it shows very positive benefit. A lot of us will think about with runners talking about getting a runner's high when they've gotten into their running for a long period of time and how good they feel. But really, you don't have to go to anywhere near that extreme to generate those same benefits. I mean, even shorter duration activities that are done consistently causing consistent stimulation of some of those feel-good chemicals are really what are going to support and nourish our brain and help improve our overall mental emotional state.
Now, the chemicals you're talking about specifically that are produced, are we talking serotonin? Would that be one?
We're talking about serotonin, and even to the extent that you look at producing a little bit of dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, these are actually going to be some of your feel-good chemicals too, right?
Yes.
So, and you look at it even more, and you kind of think about, well, people that tend to train a lot, they tend to be more motivated individuals. They tend to be doing other things within their life as well that they kind of got the ball rolling for themselves. Well, part of that is because of their exercise. When they secrete those chemicals, they're stimulating those aspects of their brain chemistry that tells them, look, you want to go be more active. You are a motivated individual. You want to take on more within reason.
That makes a lot of sense because I find that some of the people I've dealt with in ministry and even wellness in general as I speak, the ones that are extremely depressed, extremely down, recluse, withdrawn, they typically don't maintain a consistent activity lifestyle.
Right.
They're just kind of sporadic, and I find that in my life, even if I take a leisure walk, that does the same thing for me, and that's the point. Not everybody needs to be a bodybuilder. Trust me, don't go here. It's difficult. It's demanding. So I'm saying it's just about activity, making activity a part of your life. Correct?
Right. That's absolutely what it's about. And like I mentioned, it doesn't take a lot to generate secretion of those chemicals that make us feel better, that improve our overall mental state.
How do we hear the term supplements all the time? You mentioned those type of things. I guess some people would call them nutraceuticals?
Correct.
What is that? How do those fit into this? I mean, isn't food good enough?
Food might have been good enough at some point in the past, but really when you look at how we've over-farmed our lands and really some of the things that we've done to our overall food industry, food really doesn't have the same nourishing value to it that it used to. Now, granted, if you're trying to isolate organic sources and things like that, they're better, but a lot of times they're still not going to be enough. I always kind of jokingly talk with my patients sometimes. We do some testing in my practice where we're actually looking to identify nutrient deficiencies, and I get the same question, but I always jokingly say to them, you can't eat your way out of a nutrient deficiency.
Ooh,
so
nice.
at that point, you've really got to have something to act as an adjunct there, and that's where the supplements or the nutraceuticals are going to have a role at. that. And like I said very early on, it's really about defining what that need is. It's not about just, hey, I read an article and this may be good for me. It's about, well, do you really have a true individual need for that particular supplement? So when we find that, we put that nutraceutical back into that individual's treatment protocol. And the real reason behind doing that is that what you're trying to do with that nutraceutical is you're trying to replete the individual's biochemistry. So all these different metabolic pathways that are responsible for how we feel and how we function, you're really plugging all those back in and allowing them to move forward like they're supposed to without having hindrances in them.
So I guess what we're saying here is that, or what Dr. Hill is saying, is that vitamins and minerals, they are plugged into the metabolic pathway, the way our body's systems work to heal, recover, defend, rebuild, all those things. We put these little vitamins and minerals in there to make them not short-circuited. Where a wire would be coming down if it was like cut off in the middle. Am I on the right track with what you're saying?
You're absolutely on the right track, and I think one of the best analogies I can give you on this, if you take your car and you went and pulled all the spark plugs out of your car, and then you go try to turn the key, nothing's going to happen. True. Right? So I think about these vitamins and minerals and some of these different metabolites as being like the spark plugs for our body. So when you put those back in, they're a small little cofactor to the whole process, but they're important. So when they're back in, the system can begin to move forward like it's supposed to again.
So then all these metabolic pathways, as you're saying, our body's systems in which it operates correctly are in turn operating efficiently the way they're supposed to, and therefore our foods work better, our digestive systems work better, our musculoskeletal system works better.
Absolutely.
And all those things. So it's fascinating to think about what you do versus what I thought you did. As the more I've talked to you, it's been really cool to understand how it all fits together, and I can certainly understand why it's your passion. Now, your practice is based out of Houston, correct?
It is. We're actually about halfway between Houston and Galveston.
Yep.
And we've been there for several years now. It's home, so there's a lot of work to do down there and trying to get that message out. But yes, that's where I'm at.
Well, I'm hopeful that everyone will check out Dr. Hill's his practice. Check out the website and visit them and often. And I'm going to ask you. We didn't plan this, but I got so many more questions. Would you join me next show as well? And we'll want to continue the discussion because I have some questions about an area of our health that I think people will find enlightening. Would that be okay?
I'd love to.
Well, I appreciate that, and I always like to kind of wrap up the program. It's much with regret I wrap this program up today because, man, Dr. Hill's been a blessing, but